Good morning all, and thank you for your attendance today. I declare open this public hearing of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Public Works into the proposed Department of Defence Explosive Ordnance Facilities Northern New South Wales Redevelopment Project. I begin by acknowledging the Durag Nation, whose land we meet on today. I also acknowledge the cultures of any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people present with us today. In accordance with the committee's resolution, this hearing will be broadcast on the Parliament's website, and the proof and official transcripts of proceedings will be published on the Parliament's website. I also remind members of the media who may be present or listening on the web of the need to fairly and accurately report the proceedings of the committee. I'd ask people to put their phones on silent, please. My name is Graham Perrott. I'm the Chair of the Public Works Committee, and we'll start down the end with Maria.
Good morning. I'm Maria Kavas, 6th Senator for New South Wales.
I'm Karen Andrews, Federal Member for McPherson.
Keith Pitt, Federal Member for Hinkler and Deputy Chair.
Tony Zapier, Federal Member for Macon in South Australia.
I now welcome representatives from the Department of Defence to give evidence. For the Hansard record, would you please each state your full name and the capacity in which you appear? And I'd just like to say up front, if there are any questions on notice to be provided, we'd ask that they be provided by the 3rd of October. 3rd of October. Air Commodore?
Air Commodore Ron Tilley. I'm the Director General Capital Facilities and Infrastructure.
Good morning. Wing Commander Josh Wilkinson. I'm the Assistant SADFO of the Orchard Hills Base and the Commanding Officer of the Defence Explosive Ordnance Training School.
Good morning. I'm Jessica Swan, Project Manager with Jacobs.
Good morning. Rob Watkins, Director, Curry and Brown, the Cost Planner.
Good morning, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Davis, Project Director, Capital Facilities and Infrastructure.
Good morning. Greg Spencer, Hanson Yunkin, Contractors Representative.
Thanks, Mr Spencer. Although the committee does not require you to give evidence under oath, I should advise you that these hearings are formal proceedings of the Parliament. Consequently, they warrant the same respect as proceedings of the Parliament itself. Giving false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as contempt of Parliament. Air Commodore Tilley, would you care to make some brief introductory remarks before we proceed to questions?
Thank you, Chair. A priority of the 2024 National Defence Strategy is the Australian Defence Force's guided weapons and explosive ordnance capability, including the government's direction to build stocks, strengthen supply chains and manufacture munitions in Australia. The proposed works to be delivered at the Defence Establishment Orchard Hills will directly support Defence's guided weapons and explosive ordnance capability by providing new and upgraded facilities and infrastructure to manage, store and maintain munitions, and to train the highly skilled workforce required to support the capability. The proposed works include new and upgraded working accommodation for procurement, storage, distribution and administration support activities, new and upgraded training facilities for the Defence Explosive Ordnance Training School, new living-in accommodation, health and wellbeing facilities, including a small gymnasium for permanent staff and trainees, an upgraded base entry and improvements to perimeter security, a new cadet multi-user facility, and upgraded utilities and infrastructure, including power, water and sewage. The estimated total capital cost of the project is $359.3 million, which includes $32.7 million in contingency. The project will encourage local industry participation by providing local businesses with opportunities to supply construction materials and labour. Also, the project will actively promote opportunities for small and medium local enterprises through construction trade packages. There will also be opportunities for Indigenous businesses to be involved in the project in accordance with the government's Indigenous procurement policy. Expenditure on the project will support the Australian economy, in particular the construction sector in the surrounding region. Defence has undertaken extensive community consultation throughout the planning and development of the project, including federal, state and local members, the Chamber of Commerce, councillors, local Indigenous groups and members of the local community. Most recently, Defence convened community information sessions on the 9th of May in the nearby suburb of Glenmore Park. These sessions provided an opportunity for the local community to engage with the project team, ask questions and raise concerns regarding the project. A summary of these questions and responses has been included in the Community Consultation Report, which is publicly available. Subject to parliamentary approval, the project is forecast to commence construction in mid-2025 and is expected to be completed by mid-2028. Chair, that concludes my opening statement. The defence witnesses are now ready to answer questions from the committee.
Thank you very much, Air Commodore. Deputy Chair.
Thanks very much. And I'll start with the blindingly obvious ones. Could these functions be performed somewhere else? You've obviously seen significant growth in terms of residential properties around the base, and I acknowledge it's been here since the 1940s. Could the functions that are currently planned to be used with this upgrade be done elsewhere in the country?
Thank you for the question, Deputy Chair. So, as you rightly said, the base has been in its current location since the 1940s, and the government has committed to the long-term enduring position of the base as it currently stands. So there's no planned divestment of the base in the future. Before I pass over to Wing Commander Wilkinson to provide further details, he is the Assistant Senior ADF Officer at the base. I'll also say that in the last few years we have delivered several new capabilities at the base, and the base is one of Defence's primary explosive ordnance storage and maintenance facilities in the country. To relocate all those functions elsewhere would be a significant undertaking, and it will be a significant disruption to the current activities that we have in the Defence Force to support the guided weapons and explosive ordnance capability for the ADF. I'll now pass to Wing Commander Wilkinson to provide some further information regarding the capabilities that the base currently has and how long it's been in existence for example.
Thank you, sir. As you're aware, Orchard Hills has been an enduring base on site for the last 79 years. Next year we celebrate 80 years of ADF service. During that period it has been a vital explosive ordnance location and it is a key node in our explosive ordnance logistics system. Over the 80 years we've continually developed this base and we have a wide range of diverse capabilities that are hosted on that site, ranging from explosive ordnance storage through to technical guided weapons maintenance activities on that base, a wide degree of explosive ordnance technical and academic training that is conducted there. It's worth understanding that the base is quite diverse with many facilities built on that base. It would be extremely expensive to relocate that to a significantly large site. The site itself is 4 kilometres by 4 kilometres, so you can get an appreciation of the volume of area we require for the dispersed nature of activities we have. So I think the question is valid. We certainly expect to see further encroachment on the site. However, we currently protect the current capabilities that we have on that site. They are contained within the defence boundary, and we do not promote or project any appreciable risk outside of the defence boundary. We are confident that we can continue to develop and support the capabilities that we have on base within the current defence boundary through the future.
So are you blowing up fewer things than they did back in 1940?
That is a great question. As you can imagine, over time, our knowledge of explosive ordnance safety and our procedures have changed. The base has been in operation since the 40s, and I think some of the things that have changed society in that period have largely been the introduction of the workplace health and safety legislation, which has been a key driver. That follows into, I guess, the defence safety policy that we use, which really, I guess, leverages on us having safe places to conduct our business, safe processes and safe products, i.e. materials that are designed appropriately for the use. Historically, Orchard Hills was used for a wide range of both training and logistics demolition activities. Some of those involved the demolition of quite large stores. There is historical accounts of up to 500-pound bombs being demolished in that area many, many years ago. we now have very restrictive licences.
Sorry, just to be clear, when you say demolished, does that mean it goes bang?
Yes.
Right, thank you.
So effectively, logistically demolished on the surface.
Yep. There's a very polite way to say it blew up.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, with those changes, we've seen highly restrictive limits placed on our licences for use. We now have, very restrictive explosive ordnance licences for the demolitions range at the moment. Predominantly, we would use that range for either the unlikely event of a store being found in storage that was unsafe. So perhaps we would have to then, rather than transport that through the city to another site, we would take that to the demolitions range to dispose of it there. So that's
something found on your facility,
correct,
not in Joe public land.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So I guess I probably need to pause there and just describe that in most of these instances we're talking about.
Can you put it in firecracker terms? You know, like New Year's Eve sort of terms? Or what's the unit of explosives that Joe public would understand?
Right now, I can have up to 5 kilograms of 1.1, so a highly energetic detonating explosive on the surface within the boundary. The primary hazard associated with that is largely blast. There is no fragmenting stores that we conduct in our training serials. Typically, the training serials that we conduct are much lower.
So no shrapnel that's going to leave the site. It's just the blast of the energy, kinetic energy, effectively.
So a good example, and I'm not sure if you noticed it yesterday, but I actually had a team, 5 IED teams conducting live demolitions on the range yesterday while you were present. They were working in both the morning and the afternoon, and they would have They would have conducted 5 demolitions with approximately 100 grams of plastic explosives during those demolitions. I'm unsure whether you heard anything on the site. I certainly didn't.
No.
But that would be a typical training scenario.
How far away? We were like a kilometre or so from them, or?
Yes, we're about a kilometre from them.
And we didn't hear anything. So,
No.
Yeah. Well, I didn't hear anything.
No.
So.
No. So, I mean, given the use over such a long period of time, could the land be used for something else? Because I'm assuming you've got potential for unexploded devices.
That's a really great question. Again, we talk about the changing standards over time. In the 1940s, it was quite a common practice to bury explosives or hazardous materials in a hole.
Really?
Yes. So I would expect that there are areas of contamination that would require significant work and cost to basically make that area safe for public habitants.
Sorry, and last question, Chair. So just in terms of the project itself, what's the impact on the base, given that you're going to be doing construction work inside that very controlled zone? What sort of safeguards are in place? Because from what we saw yesterday, you can't go in with cigarettes or lighters or phones. It's intrinsically safe. So, but I'm assuming you're going to have to be pushing dirt around with excavators, whatever, for the actual construction. So what's the impact on the base and how's that managed?
So, Deputy Chair, I'll start by answering that question. This particular project that we're focusing on at the moment, the Explosive Ordnance Northern New South Wales Redevelopment Project, is primarily confined to the domestic precinct of the base. So all the restrictions that are in place going into the explosive ordnance safety areas, that doesn't apply as much to this particular, the scope of work that will be delivered as part of this project being primarily confined to the domestic zone.
Yep.
I will ask firstly our contractor, our managing contractors representative, Mr Spencer, to provide further details of what sort of work may go into those more restricted areas where there are limitations in place to doing that work. Thank you, Mr Spencer.
Thank you. UXO clearance is a condition precedent under the contract. We do that wherever we're building a new building. Ground penetrating radar, then dig up any ferrous items that are found, remove them, declare the space safe, build our works there. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that happens at other times. How often do you actually find something? Is it a regular occurrence? Is it yearly, every 10 years?
I'll ask Wing Commander Wilkinson to provide some further information on that question. Thank you, Deputy Chair.
So in relation to the, I guess, the domestic areas that we're looking to develop at the moment, the contractor has engaged companies like MilSearch that basically conduct ground penetrating radar and they run a search pattern over the entire area that they intend to build on. And then they will identify any potential suspect items through that ground penetrating radar, and that will be subject to further, I guess, search and remediation activities.
But it's happened before. It works.
Yes, yes.
Thanks, Chair.
Mr Zapier.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions. Firstly, what was the response from the local and state planning authorities to the proposed upgrade of the base?
Okay, thank you, Mr Zapier. I will. We have done community consultation, as I've mentioned in my opening address, with federal, state and local members. So a few of them have...
The public.
And the public definitely as well.
Shopping centre.
Definitely as well, the public. That's correct. There were 2 community consultation sessions provided for members of the public. I will ask, though, for Ms Swan to provide further information regarding how the state and the local public planning authorities have accepted or any questions, queries they've had regarding the proposed redevelopment, let's call it redevelopment of the base.
And that would that be in the capacity of commenting on rather than deciding on, if my understanding of New South Wales...
Correct, because it is Commonwealth-owned land that we are developing. So I'll ask now Ms Swan to provide further information. Thank you.
Thank you, Commodore Tilley. So Defence wrote directly to 13 key stakeholders advising them of the impending referral to the Standing Committee on Public Works and offered a project briefing and an opportunity to provide Defence feedback. 2 key stakeholders requested briefings, either directly or via a nominated representative. Defence undertook a community consultation activity with a pop-up information booth over 2 sessions at Glenmore Park on the 9th of May 2024.
Sorry, if we could just go to the state
exactly.
planning
The
minister and or the
state and local
council,
authority.
Council.
Exactly.
I think the mayor was mentioned in the direct briefing, but did they have any written responses to the notification from the Air Commodore?
Yes, so in our community consultation report that has been provided and...
Yeah, we'll just try and get it up, sorry.
Oh, you will, yeah. The community consultation report was provided to the committee and has been published on the committee's website. So we do have, for example, a summary of briefings that were provided to, for example, the state member for Badgerys Creek.
No, can we go straight to the question that I asked? The state and local planning authorities, what was their response to the proposed redevelopment?
So New South Wales Planning has been was engaged with this project. We provided the information on...
Right, so what was the response?
The response was that this project didn't... So as part of the engagement that New South Wales Planning with their Orchard Hills redevelopment, with their Orchard Hills planning growth strategy,
so that's
Defence has
the
already...
state.
That's the state plan
state.
for Orchard Hills.
Yep.
Defence has been engaging with them throughout the development of that plan, and this project is not changing any of the information that's been provided, and we've informed New South Wales Planning of that, and have engaged with them, and they were happy
you have, but what was their response?
their response was that...
Like a letter saying...
No, just emails. So
An email?
We've got emails from
Do you want to read?
Defence.
Do you want to put on the public record what they said?
They said...
Or paraphrase? Or...
Paraphrase was that our information to them was that the development of the project hasn't changed any of the information that Defence has previously provided on the base, and they were happy with that.
So with that, we noticed that and we can talk about the purple safeguarding arc.
Yep.
We noticed in the maps provided that residences came to within very close to those purple arcs. So that's outside the purple arc. So they state were comfortable that nothing that they intended would come within the purple arc of the safety.
Correct. So the purple arc is the public building distance, so that's significant public buildings for hospitals and places of significant public gathering.
Not private dwellings?
Not private dwellings. The inhabited building distance, which is the yellow safeguarding arc, that is the residential arc, so we would not want residential to be within the yellow safeguarding arc, which is the inhabited building distance, and that one is within the defence boundary. So the purple line that you can see, which just goes outside the defence boundary, that's for large public gatherings, so hospitals, sporting stadiums.
The state planning minister and or local council would find it useful not to put residences inside that purple arc and make it a sporting field or some other such measure.
There's no there's nothing stopping them from putting.
Are they aware of your desire to have a safe area around the facility as well?
Yes, so the safeguarding arcs have been provided to New South Wales Planning, and they have been, as part of the council briefing, they were provided to the council as well as part of the briefing.
And what was the council's response?
The council's response was, when we explained what the safeguarding arcs were, they weren't concerned.
I will add that on other bases, seeing we're talking about the yellow and purple arcs, on some other bases where we store explosive ordnance, we have residences, private residences, all the way up to the border, the boundary of that yellow arc. Here at Orchard Hills, the residences are way outside of that yellow arc.
Okay. Sorry, just one additional from me. So the proposed changes for storage on the site, does that change the purple arc position?
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I will ask, my knowledge with that purple arc is the purple arc is not going to be extended as a result. Sorry, I think we're getting two projects mixed up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're getting two projects. This project that we should be focusing on is the redevelopment project.
Yeah.
The next project will talk about the additional explosive ordnance storage that's going to occur on the base, if that's okay.
Understood. Chair.
Conjoining. Yeah.
Well, perhaps my other question was to do with the next phase, but I assume that once the redevelopment is completed, there will be an increased number of explosives stored on the base?
Not as a result of the redevelopment project, Mr Zapier, but as a result of the guided weapons and explosive ordnance. That second project, there will be. It's a bit confusing because we've got the two projects.
I understand that.
Yeah. So there will be as a result of the second project.
So if I can go back to my original question, did you get a written response from state planning and from the local councils?
We did not get a written response from the local council. That was just a personal briefing that I provided to the mayor, but we have emails from New South Wales Planning.
And Councillor Todd Carney, I think, the City Mayor had.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, Chair.
And
provided an email.
And have those responses been provided to the committee?
No, Mr Zapier, no.
Are we able to get them?
I think we've got to paraphrase, Mr Zapier, of the gist of the correspondence.
Yeah.
On page.
Yeah, but I'd like to see them.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
You'd never guess, but Mr Zapier has a background in local government, so always good to look after all levels of government.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So sorry, Mr Zapier, we will provide to the committee, along with any other questions on as we receive, we'll provide the responses that we've received from the state and local planning authorities.
Thank you.
Ms Andrews?
Thank you, Chair. Look, from what we've heard at the hearing this morning, we would be led to believe that everything is fine. What we're not hearing is the evidence to support that. So I'd like to ask some questions in relation to any risk assessments that have been undertaken and whether there was any specific attention or risk analysis done in relation to the adjacent properties and future developments.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs Andrews. So I would still like to focus on the redevelopment project during this hearing. So we have certainly undertaken, the managing contractor has undertaken and the project manager a thorough risk assessment for this project. We, after post-mitigation of the risks, we have a total of 15. We have no high risks remaining as far as the risk assessment was concerned, and 15 moderate risks remaining, once again associated with the redevelopment project. So I will initially ask Mr Spencer to provide further information regarding the risk assessment that has been undertaken as part of the redevelopment project.
Maybe worth just...
Okay. I'll pass it on to Ms Swan, who will provide further information regarding the risk assessment. Are you okay with that, Ms Swan? Okay, thank you. Just while Ms Swan's trying to find the appropriate areas, so we looked at all areas in the risk assessment, including capability, delivery of services, financial risk, security, schedule, and also obviously what impact the redevelopment itself was going to happen to the base, focusing on the domestic facilities in particular that we are going to be upgrading, replacing as part of this project.
Thank you very much. So risk workshops were conducted for the development of the 30%, 50% and 90% design reviews and the detailed business case. The highlighted key risks focus on the current environment of the construction industry and the condition of the existing base services. Okay. Key risks. There are some major political and social events which could affect this project. The volatile stock exchange, global oil price, global supply chain disruptions, COVID-19, noting that this project was commenced in 2019, so the COVID-19 is obviously on the decline with its impact. The increased construction costs I will leave for Greg Spencer to speak to. In terms of ongoing risk management with the local community, we aren't tracking anything other than the road and traffic impacts, which we do have risk management strategies in place for. But in terms of anything to do with explosive ordnance arcs, that is beyond the scope of this program.
That's fine. Now I'm interested in the transport because that is likely to be one of the things that will impact on the local community. So if you could take us through that, that would be good.
Not a problem. Greg, whilst I get the transport information up, did you want to speak any more to the risks?
So it's estimated that the project will have approximately 300 vehicles entering the base. For construction, yep. And so the base has a manning of 654 people. So it is an increase to the amount of people entering the base, but it's been assessed that the recent upgrade of the Northern Road is that many vehicles will not have an impact on the traffic on the Northern Road, and the lights that we've got at the front of the base are adequate for allowing those vehicles to enter the base under this project. With the refurbishment of the front entranceway, a temporary access with 2 lanes will be created to allow more vehicles to enter the base a bit further and allow for extra stacking. So the temporary measures while we're building the new front entrance will actually create more space for vehicles to park or be lined up to enter the base than currently allows right now.
Plus we'll control how construction deliveries come to site. They just don't come randomly. They'll be sequenced throughout the day to even out the load, remove the peaks.
Okay, all right, excellent, which was a good segue into what I was going to ask next, which was about the peak times and then the span of hours in which you would expect that there would be an increased noise level.
Noise is a bit more of a complex one. There's more noise generated from vehicles on the Northern Road than there is from many other activities around there. You'll have to be in close proximity to construction for the construction noise. In terms of vehicles, we're a very small percentage of the overall volume on the Northern Road. Those vehicles get filtered off onto our site. The concept is we will not have delivery vehicles occurring in the morning peak or the evening peak of people arriving or departing from the base. No delivery vehicles then. Construction workers will be on the most advised to arrive before the site starts in the morning. So we have our first push, then people who work on site arrive and our people leave after. and deliveries are set to occur in the window between the morning peak and the afternoon peak. We schedule those deliveries using a piece of software so that they have to stand off a couple of kilometres away and they only come to base at the allocated time frame.
Okay, good. Thank you. In terms of the overall number of people that are on the site, I didn't quite catch the figure. You said that there were 300 vehicles, and then you said another figure, 600.
654.
654, and that's people?
So that's the manning, the actual manning of the base.
Okay. How many workers will there be during the construction period, and what will be the maximum number that you will have on site?
I'll start answering that question, Ms Andrews.
If you want aircon.
Yes, so the average daily construction workforce is estimated to be 200. The peak daily workforce is estimated to be up to 300, and the total workforce across the entire project up to 500 workforce.
And what will be the peak time frame for that to be the case? So at what time are you expecting the construction to peak?
I will pass that particular question on to Mr Spencer, thank you.
And is it after you've built the front car park and double lanes?
Excellent question, Mr Chair. We will, because the front entry is such a throttle to this base and to all work that happens on it, we want to build the temporary 2 lanes in first and then ramp up. So get that underway so we've got the extra stacking distance, we've got more controls in place, then we ramp up. So it'll be a very low period of time for the first 12 months plus till we get that new front entry, dual lane entry in.
Mm-hmm. Pardon?
You good? Should I go to Ms
Well,
Senator?
so in terms of the actual time frame, maybe I missed that.
The duration of construction?
Yeah.
It's
So
probably
when are you going to hit the peak time?
12 months in,
Yep.
then 2 years of construction. So the first 12 months we'll see construction at a lower pace. It might be the infrastructure, water supply, wastewater systems, the high voltage that doesn't require a lot of deliveries. And then when we hit the major buildings which require a lot more concrete trucks, the volume peaks up.
Okay, so in terms of the answer that I just had, in terms of there would be up to 200 daily construction workforce, will that be over the subsequent 2-year period, that there will be an additional 200? Is that... I'm just trying to get a sense of the figure.
Sure. If I map it out over 3 years, in the first year there'll be less than 100 till we open up the dual lane entry in. Then it'll ramp up to an average of 200, but it'll be a peak in the middle of some 300.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Well, it's better. Okay, thank you.
Senator Kovasic?
Thank you. My questions relate to the accessibility of the site, and this may not be a question that you can answer directly, but is the M4 carriageway to Old Northern Road that passes the base, is that the main transport corridor that's been used for the Western Sydney Airport as well, in order to get trucks through? And the reasoning for my question is that road already used to dealing with construction traffic, etc., for that project? So effectively, in terms of assessing an impact to the local community, one would suggest that it's already been able to maintain that in order to construct the airport.
Thank you for the question. Look, I can't speak on behalf of Western Sydney Airport, but what I can say is it's probably accessed from all 4 directions. With the M4 and then the Northern Road, that would be a safest route to go and has a larger catchment around it to bring stuff. So I would agree with your concept that that's probably the main route to the... However, the capacity of the Northern Road was upgraded, completed by New South Wales Roads and Maritime in, I think it was December 21, from memory, we'll have to check that. It went from 1 lane each way to 2 lanes each way with major, shoulders on each side. So the capacity of the road is quite significant now. And again, have to check this, but I think it's in excess of 2,000 vehicles per hour per lane.
Yeah.
So we provide a small percentage of 300 vehicles over 8 hours compared to 2,000 vehicles an hour per lane.
Yeah, so that gives us an insight into the impact, which is
The scale.
not significant.
Yeah.
In terms of activities on the base, so for example, when one of the classroom structures is being demolished and rebuilt, where will that training occur? Will it be somewhere else on the base? Will they go out to Richmond? What will happen to the people who are on that base at that time that would normally be using those facilities?
Thank you, Senator. I will ask the Commanding Officer of the Defence Explosive Ordnance Training School, Wing Commander Wilkinson, to provide information to answer that question.
Thank you very much, Senator. I'm quite comfortable with the plan that we have for continuity of operations on the base. The project director has assured me that where temporary accommodation is required, it will be provided. So base occupants are largely expecting a combination of either temporary accommodation where necessary or remaining in extant accommodation until the new accommodation is built.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Deputy Chair.
I just want to come to the cadet facility. Could you give us a bit of an outline, because I'm assuming the model will be similar to others in terms of changes of the security provisions, because you've got mum and dads likely to be doing drop-offs, base access. How's that likely to work? What's it look like?
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Chair. So currently on the base at Orchard Hills, within the secure perimeter of the base, we have an Army and a Navy cadet unit.
No Air Force. It's
Air Force.
Disgraceful.
The Air Force cadet unit is actually off base, so it's not within the secure perimeter of the base. However, this project proposes to build a new cadet multi-user facility that will be adjacent to the front entrance of the base, but will allow mums and dads to drop off the cadets without having to go through the front gate. So the new cadet facilities will be outside of the secure perimeter of the base, and the multi-user facility will accommodate the Army and Navy cadet units that are currently on the base, as well as the Air Force cadet unit. So we will bring the Air Force cadet unit to the multi-user facility as well, which is currently off base. Hopefully that answers the question sufficiently, Deputy Chair.
All good?
I've got another question.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Zappy. Yeah.
Air Commodore, once this work is completed, is there any other major works that are likely to occur in the future on this base, to your knowledge?
Thank you, Mr Zappia. We will be talking later on this morning regarding a second project that we are is going through a hearing very soon, and that requires additional building work on the base apart from this project that we're talking about now, the redevelopment project. So we'll get into the detail at the second hearing. In the future, once these two projects, if subject to approval and are delivered, then they're potentially, I don't know for sure, there is no other project at this stage that has received government approval, so we haven't referred any further project to the Public Works Committee, but there potentially could be, as all defence, particularly as defence increases its guided weapons and explosive ordnance capability in response to the National Defence Strategy, there potentially could be further projects in the future for Defence Establishment Orchard Hills, but I cannot say that for sure.
And this project has provision for 60 new accommodation units, and we were told that perhaps in the future you would want another, or you would need another 60 on the site. What's the likelihood of getting the whole 120 built as part of this project?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Zappia. So,
should we ask Mr Watkins the cost assessor of that? Or?
Well, it really, the contracting model that we're using for this project is a managing contractor model, of which Hanson Yuncken, and Mr Spencer is the representative from Hanson Yuncken. So the building works are delivered through trade packages that we cannot go out to market yet. So we haven't tested the market yet. We've only got our cost plan to go off of at this stage. We will be able to go out to market if and when this project receives parliamentary approval, and that's when we'll start to find if there's any cost savings as a result of the trade packages that are let. We do have an amount of risk provision as well that's put aside for this project. So if risks are retired throughout the delivery of the project, then that may also lead to further savings where we may be able to afford a second accommodation block. But that is only one of several elements that are currently unaffordable within the approved project budget, and we would need to, we've got a prioritised list of those items, and we'll work through those items based on their priority before we get to the second 60-room accommodation block.
Thank you.
Ms Andrews?
So will this project impact at all any of the bushland surrounding the main site?
Thank you, Ms Andrews. So, Mrs Andrews, there are offset areas on the site, both to the north of the site and the south of the site, but within our boundary, that have been made offset areas as a result of the Western Sydney Airport. This project will not clear any of those bushland areas.
Okay, thank you. What will happen with the waste from the demolition of the buildings, etc., that are going to be impacted, or any of the construction waste? So will it leave the site, or will it stay here?
Thank you, Mrs Andrews. So I will ask Mr Spencer to provide a response to that question. Thank you.
Just buy me one more minute, that would be appreciated.
Yeah. So whilst we are waiting for Mr Spencer, we do have. You good to go? We do have in place recycling of waste material as much as possible, but the detail will be provided by Mr Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
The objective is to reuse all waste, but you can never reuse all. We will reuse excavation material on the base. Surplus excavation material will remain on the base. Demolition waste from construction of buildings. Hazardous materials goes and gets disposed of as hazardous materials does. The rest of it will be crushed or recycled. Steel goes off to a recycling plant. Crushed material, concrete or bricks, will go into road base and other things. So we try and maximise the reuse during construction, and it's driven by the economics of it as well as the policy. And from there will be a small amount that we can't recycle, can't remain on site, so a very small amount may go to landfill.
Okay. Are you able to provide a breakdown of that subsequent to the hearing to the committee, please? I'd be interested in seeing how that's going to look. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing further from me.
Thanks, Ms Andrews. And you've got that date for...
The 3rd of October,
yeah.
Chair.
Thanks. Senator?
I'm okay, thank you.
You're good? I just wanted to check on the role that the base plays for the public, and I think we heard evidence yesterday that you might, like if Grandad had a World War II grenade or something like that, that you discover when dealing with this estate. Could you just explain that service you perform for the public, that the base performs, perhaps, Wing Commander? I know it's... Yep.
Orchard Hills is currently home to a number of, ADF elements that are highly trained in explosive ordnance demolition and disposal. We have an organisation on base called the Joint Explosive Ordnance Services, and they provide direct support to the New South Wales Police and the Australian Federal Police in relation to ADF munitions found within the public, as well as explosive hazards in the public. So they ultimately augment and support those capabilities within state and federal law enforcement.
Okay, thank you. Now, I think we, apart from that question I noticed for Mrs Andrews about the demolition plan, I think we are finished, and we can turn to some other witnesses.
Yep, say this.
Although the committee does not... No.
Oh, no, don't say that.
Sorry, thank you for your attendance here today, and you'll be sent a copy of the transcript to make any corrections to the transcription. And I'd now call the next witness. Sorry, Commodore.
I know, I was just going to say we will also respond to Mr Zappia's question regarding
Oh, sorry, yeah.
the official responses we receive for state and local planning authorities.
Yep. And I do try and cross it off as we go to avoid such. Okay, I now welcome a representative from the Defence Neighbours Association to give evidence. For the Hansard record, would you please state your full name and the capacity in which you appear?
Bob Charles Weldon. I'm Chair of the Defence Neighbours Association, Inc.
Thanks, Mr Weldon. Although the committee does not require you to give evidence under oath, I should advise you that these hearings are formal proceedings of the Parliament. Consequently, they warrant the same respect as proceedings of the Parliament itself. Giving false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as a contempt of Parliament. Mr Weldon, would you care to make some brief introductory remarks before we proceed to questions?
Thank you, Chair and committee members. I've provided Ella with a written form of what I'm proposing to say today, which, if you may or may not want to distribute it, will allow me to skip. Oh, okay. That allows me to skip through the boring bits and hit the most important things. So I'll go straight to what I call our executive summary, which is really what we're recommending that you do, and then I'll go through in detail and you can ask questions as you wish. So we would suggest that there's not enough information to approve the development, and our recommendation one would be that there should be a re-exhibition of both projects. And today Ella wanted us to speak at this time, but we're actually talking about both projects, and we've made a similar submission to both projects. There should be a re-exhibition of both projects to the community with full and detailed information, analysis and consultation like that afforded by New South Wales planning law. Secondly, we suggest that the committee needs independently verified information rather than just the information provided by Defence. So as part of the re-exhibition, the committee should require an independent assessment by experts in areas such as traffic, town planning and explosive safety. Thirdly, if Defence can't be a good neighbour, they should operate GWIO away from neighbours. So Defence actually has a neighbourhood policy, but we would suggest that they don't comply with that. Fourthly, do we grow GWIO, that's guided weapons and explosives ordnance, in Sydney and the Hunter Valley, or do we do it in the other 80 million hectares of New South Wales or the rest of Australia? And we would recommend for the committee encourage Defence to grow and relocate its GWIO operations outside of Sydney and the Hunter Valley. And lastly, 5, waste of government funds. We would suggest to you that expenditure of $604 million for the 2 projects should not be approved, as the projects are not sustainable in the long term. So now to a bit more information. So in terms of not enough information, the biggest standout from the Defence evidence is really the lack of it. There's inadequate detail for a total project value of $604 million. Most DAs, of under $10 million in value, would have much more information provided to the decision maker. We in our own instance, we're a Defence neighbour. In a personal thing, we did a DA, which has spurred my interest in the way Defence.
Sorry, Mr. Will, when you say we, do you mean Defence Neighbours Association?
No, me personally.
Okay.
I am also a Defence neighbour.
Yeah. Okay.
And so a Defence neighbour of an EO base. So I have experience of dealing with defence in this format, and I'm concerned that the things that we've experienced will occur in the Orchard Hills as well and other bases. And also for defence, it needs to be making long-term sustainable, sometimes hard, but as per what the Deputy Chair has indicated, hard decisions that are the best for them. So in terms of issues that really weren't adequately discussed at all in the public consultation process, and consequently there is an input from the public on issues like public safety, because there was no public safety information provided in the first place. Emergency services, certainly in other instances, Defence has argued that they will overwhelm, incidents on their bases would overwhelm local communities, emergency services. Traffic safety. Now, they have raised in other forums traffic safety issues, including with the explosive ordnance that has to be commuted around the bases. They're not just teleported here. It has to be moved around the Sydney suburbs to get here. And I can go into those things. There's a bit of detail in the written proposal, but bushfire risk requires a bit of explanation. There are two extraordinary fire risks associated with the Orchard Hills Gueo base, as it is Defence policy not to fight a fire when it's in an explosives ordnance area. So, and Defence in their own submission have stated the Manual Fire Protection Engineering notes that direct attack on a fire within or adjacent to an explosive ordnance storage buildings presents an unacceptable risk to staff and firefighters. So, if there is a fire, as I understand, I'm not the expert, and I suggest you get independent experts, but as I understand, if there is a fire in the EO base, they will let it burn. So, what else do we have on the base? Is the base has been used to set up an enormous environmental offset area, which has good environmental benefits, of course, but we also know it's a lot of fuel for a fire. So we have a combination of a fire that can't be attended to.
But you've seen the buffer between the woodland area and the actual base, haven't you?
I haven't been given much. You know, the committee will have more information. I wasn't able to attend the...
Google Maps gives you more than we got, that's for sure. The Google Maps shows you that there's...
Well, we're raising issues that we believe haven't been adequately described. Yeah. You have more information than me, so I'm not trying to be a de facto committee member. I'm just making a submission. I think that there are serious considerations. We were
informed that there's, well, in our inspection we saw only grassland surrounding the key facility.
Also,
grass of, I think it was 200.
A standard fire trail that you'd find to get around, massive residential communities.
I'm just suggesting these are issues that haven't been, like the amount of information given to you for a $604 million development is very minor compared to what would be required for a pretty small DA. And fire, for example, they did in the earlier speakers spoke about demolitions. Well, there is a demolition range adjacent to property I have an interest in, and very recently there was an explosion there in the demolition range and it started a bushfire. So to suggest
I think we'll have to
issue,
confine to the Orchard Hills project at the moment.
Yes, no, and I want to do that. I'm just being disclosing. So there's a whole lot of areas where I think Defence should be providing more information, and in addition, the supplementary submissions from Defence, which obviously weren't provided to the public and the public couldn't respond to them because they didn't have them, were talking about responses, and they actually did go to public safety and some things. They were, for example, Melissa McIntosh raised issues about the safety arc, and they said there are no changes in the safety arc, for example. Yeah. So, but members of the public weren't able to respond to that. Anyway, I'll just move on then to independent verification, and I'd just like to take you to that point that I just mentioned about throughout the supplementary responses, Defence states that there are no changes to the safety arc. So they defeat the comments, the inquiries that were made by the committee before about New South Wales planning, whatever. They just say, well, there are no changes to anything. Now,
but surely we could rely on a Commonwealth entity to be saying the truth when they look at international standards for safety arcs and then exceed those safety arcs.
Well, the matter has actually been considered by a judge very recently, and the judge found that they couldn't be relied upon. So I've given the judgment to Ella.
Okay. What case was that? Can you talk us through that case?
This is a case. It was relating to our base and the neighbour.
So you took the case?
No. We have a plan. We were trying to get a planning approval for our site, and Defence objected to that
on the grounds of the safety arc.
They objected on the basis that they thought there would be safety effects from their base upon us.
So was your property inside the safety arc?
The purple arc trimmed our property.
And what was the use, the land use?
We were proposing to use some of our sheds for an art gallery.
Oh, an art gallery, okay. So what was the current use? Farming?
We've got a winery.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I don't want to, I'll answer your questions, but the important point is they've made the suggestion that there are increases in explosives, but there are no increases in the safety arcs. Now that seems to me inconsistent with the Defence regulations.
Unless they change the storage of it.
Well, in the Defence regulations, and I've given Ella a copy of the page, 1.8 of the Defence regs, it says it is necessary to determine the amount of explosive substance to use for computing quantity distances. The quantity distance tables give the minimum distances between the potential explosive site and an exposed site. So broadly, and you've got more expert people, you can rely upon than me, I think you need an explosive expert, but broadly, the amount of explosives material is proportional to the distance, the safety distance. Now,
well, unless stored. The storage is the key.
The storage, yeah, the amount of explosive material stored. So if you increase the explosive material stored, you need a greater safety distance. Is certainly, as I understand it,
Well, I think the thing you need to put into the mix is how it is stored. If it's stored in an open area rather than in a concrete bunker.
I'm presuming they're all stored in their earth-covered bunkers, which, as I understand it, is the only way they store it.
Yeah.
But
and whether 3 lots of 10 tonne in particular distances is the same as 30 in one place, I think there's a lot of variation.
Again, an explosive safety expert is the right person, but if in this particular matter, explosive safety experts were involved, and the Defence's explosive safety expert was not relied upon. Yeah. So they're not the font of all knowledge. Like, I have no problem with the individual defence people and the individual defence objective. I think we all share that we want them to be strong. But the question is it a sustainable thing for them to be operating in this location in the long, long term? And how much money do you give them? Like, there is a point where you have to start thinking, well, we're better off to put that money somewhere else. I have in some detail explained why the independent judge found that the primary focus of the Defence regulation is on meeting the needs of the Commonwealth and not as a tool for assessment of other developments, having regard to the features and risks of the EO facility and other developments on land not controlled by the Commonwealth. In addition, the Commonwealth Defence regulations were not prepared by a process of community consultation. So, in addition, in this instance, the Commonwealth contended that there were risks beyond the safety regulations. They actually contended themselves that there were residual risks beyond the purple line. Now, I'm not the expert on these things.
Say that again, Mr. Wood.
The Commonwealth, in the case that I've given you,
sorry, I've got
in paragraph 84 of the judgment by Justice Duggan, states the Commonwealth contended that even if the use was appropriately classified as Group 4 building, that just goes to the type of building, there remained a residual risk to public safety. The foundation for this contention was that the defence regulations did not operate to remove all risk, and therefore there remained a risk from which conformity with the defence regulations would not address. Now, I've given you the source information. I think you need an explosive expert to advise you on these matters. The defence has given you a couple of lines. There are no changes to the safety arcs. Now, they made a whole lot of submissions in this court case as well, and they were not accepted. They didn't win the court case. They basically seek to sterilise other people's land, and the reality is they need a Commonwealth...
Another way might be to say to keep the public safe from defence activities that require us to store explosive weapons.
I think that's a reasonable thing to say, but if you actually look at what the judge found that those purple lines are just there. So the safeguarding...
Well, the judge let you build an art gallery and education establishment on your property.
Yes.
I don't think the judge actually says what the defence intends to do about it.
No, I'm just meaning in regard to... I'm just getting to the point of the purple line.
Yeah.
The purple line is there for defence's benefit. Arguably, look, good planning benefits everyone, and arguably defence should be planning for the long term of Orchard Hills, and that's really what we're here about today. And how much money do you care? I don't believe that Orchard Hills is sustainable in the long term. If you look at the growth around, and we can move on to those points, but you can see that there's massive growth all around, which is in the last few pages of the submission, massive growth. Like, it's unbelievable. They've already diverted...
But none inside the purple line.
Well, yeah, I don't have access to the purple line, so I will accept what you're saying.
I can assure you,
yeah. But you know, the defence has submitted that all the impacts of their operations are not necessarily within, like a bushfire impact, for example, will go beyond the purple line. There are various impacts that they will have beyond the purple line. So, in any event, one impact, for example, is they've already diverted all the flight paths for the Western Sydney Airport around this base. So they don't go around over the base during the daytime. Now, so there are impacts, and obviously, look, we need all parts of the economy. Valuable thing in what we all do. Everyone in the room is making a valuable contribution to Australia, as they all do. But what's the right thing? I mean, if you look at the only map that they have attached to their submission is this map in attachment 1, which has a map of New South Wales with a red dot on Orchard Hills. I mean, imagine a private person getting away with providing that level of the local government person, this level of detail. But it also does illustrate how big a state we have, how big, obviously, the country is much bigger than Australia. There are lots of better locations. Now, I'm sure someone at Defence is beavering away looking at other locations, but rather than, you know, the Hunter Valley and Sydney, which are the busiest locations in Australia, or in New South Wales, I would suggest that you know, with the limited public funds that the government has, they should be looking to move this money in the long term. Like, to the extent they've got an urgent commitment that can only be met within 2 years with Orchard Hills, well, it's hard to argue against that. But if there's something they're looking at 10 years, 20 years down the track, it's all sunk money. So if you're talking about an investment that's going to take 30 years to pay off, it is crazy to put it here. You know, like, get two more years out of the lodgings or whatever. You know, if there's a bunker that you actually, you know, got nowhere to put that missile except in that bunker in the next year, well, you got no choice. But in 10 years, 20 years, to suggest, if you look at what's happening around here, so I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, but I think you've got the core of what we're on about,
We might move to questions if that's right, Mr.
Yeah,
Wilder.
of course. Thank you.
Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Wilder, just a couple of questions about Defence Neighbours Association, because I haven't come across it before.
Yeah, we're only...
how long has it been established? How many members?
It's
what
only,
areas
like
do you
it's got
cover?
about 10 members. It's a new association. We haven't actively recruited members in Orchard Hills yet.
Yeah. So there's no representatives in the local area for this project?
No. And I haven't approached anyone locally at this stage. We probably will.
Okay. Yes, of course.
So nobody from this area, Glenmore Park has nearly 30,000 residents, has actually come to you and said, we have a problem with this?
Well, we're just an association, so...
I'm not asking. My question is, has someone from the local community come to Defence Neighbours Association as a Defence neighbour saying we have a problem with what's going on, particularly with the works to upgrade buildings?
No, but we haven't had any. They wouldn't even know exist, But there have been a number of submissions.
10 members nationally?
Yeah, we're just a new association. So we've got. There are a number of submissions on the to these projects.
My question relates to the local community specifically. So you've had no engagement from anybody locally?
I haven't contacted anyone. I have full-time work and,
no, that's fine.
I'm
it's just a question.
Yeah. Not paid to be here.
No, that's fine. And your own, and you don't have to give details of your dwelling. Is it in Western Sydney and other
No,
parts
I live in Sydney. I live in North Shore.
Okay, thank you.
And the country.
Your submission is not based on any feedback from any Western Sydney resident in relation to this project?
Well, I think most of the written information, which you've given you quite a bit of, is pretty general, and it's not trying to it doesn't pretend to be local. I mean, we think that there's a strong need, based on my own experience, there's a strong need. I mean, Defence is a monolith. They've got a lot of great people, but...
Thank you. My question just relates to the feedback isn't local specific. It doesn't come from Western Sydney.
There's a whole lot of issues that need to be considered, like PFAS. There's been terrible PFAS issues.
All right,
a whole lot of
We'll
issues.
get back to the Deputy Chair.
Sorry. So in terms of the association, is it funded? Is it just volunteers? Is it just people that...
Just volunteers.
Just volunteers. Yeah. And given there was no direct ties to this project locally, consultation, you were able to make a submission. Did you get a response?
I think the process is just that we put the submission on the website, and then we ask for a public hearing. I don't know whether it's a standard to have a public hearing or...
We're here.
It's great that was considered.
But it's not externally funded.
Like the reality...
You're not
externally funded. It's just volunteer.
No. Well, look, I am a Defence neighbour.
Yes.
I mean,
and the other 10 members are all Defence neighbours.
Or associate, they've got linkages with Defence neighbours, but they're not all owners, property owners.
What's a linkage? Live in the same suburb or?
Yeah, just supporters,
Okay.
So there's no corporate monolith behind it.
No.
I mean, I don't have the smallest family business in Australia, but it's just a family business.
Yeah.
I mean, not doing anything.
Oh yeah, no. It's just
as I say, we're all making a contribution to Australia,
correct.
And Defence's contribution is substantial, but it's not the only thing, and they present themselves as though they're the only thing.
Okay.
Well, they focus on their job, I think.
Yeah, we all got to do our job, and obviously people...
But you can diversify. You can do wine and education and art,
Yeah,
you
look,
can
that's
do all
what
three of those in the...
Well, that's what we're trying to do.
Mr. Zapier?
Chair, thank you. Mr. Wilden, I'm just trying to get this clear. You had a court case in respect to an application that you put up, and that was determined in your favour?
Yes.
And was the court case against the local council?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it was trying to get planning. It was a planning court.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
The local council initially made a decision that you weren't permitted to build your art gallery. You appealed that, and their argument would have been because of the impacts of Defence.
Basically, what happened is that the local council were very supportive of the proposal.
Yep.
And then Defence objected to it, and then they said they were going to oppose it. So we went to the planning court.
Hang on.
And then Defence
Hang on.
joined the case.
Can I just hold you up, because I want to get this clear. The local council was supportive, Defence objected, so what did the local council then do?
They then wanted to go support Defence.
So they did not approve the project.
No.
Because of the objection from Defence.
Yes.
Okay. From there, you took it to the court.
Yes.
And you won.
Yes.
Okay.
I should just point out, Mr. Zappia, just reading the case, that remember the evidence, we heard evidence yesterday about Defence being concerned about particularly large surface areas with glass that could be impacted by glass.
I recall all that.
And on paragraph 82 of the decision, the Muswellbrook Shire Council, they said that the building is not of especially vulnerable construction, such that the provisions of the Group 5 classification would apply. So,
yeah, everything that of our circumstance is not relevant to the Orchard Hills scenario, and I'm not trying to suggest it is. I'm just trying to say that there is a Defence are not good in dealing with neighbours. You know, they're not good. Like they're meant to. They've got a neighbour policy and whatever that they don't like. Their neighbour policy is not to go to court. Their neighbour policy is to negotiate with try and resolve things, but they don't follow it because everything goes. It's easy for them to send things to court. So I don't believe. I think they need to.
Can we?
Sorry.
You don't need to go on.
Question.
My interest is actually, how is the local authority dealing with what's happening on
as
the
you asked before.
space?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to use your example to try and understand how the local authority is dealing with it.
And I think you had the evidence earlier. Were you here when we were asking about the response from the state planning
I get your
and the
point
local
now, Mr. Zappia. So the reality is, as you know, the local authorities are not highly resourced all the time.
Yeah,
they can only respond to the information they're given.
Right.
So in this instance, the Mayor has asked, well, what's the issue? Effectively, what are the safety impacts? And Defence has said there are no safety impacts. So what do? Like they don't. So the issue is they're reliant upon the information given to them. They don't have the benefit of an independent safety expert, which is what I'd suggest it would clarify. It may be that an independent safety expert would determine there are no issues. I don't know, but that's what actually had to happen in our case to determine our matter.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator?
Just one quick question to wrap up from me. Your submission talks a number of times around defence bullying of neighbours.
Yes.
In the construction of your submission, how many Defence neighbours came to you with allegations of bullying in relation to the inability to do work on their property?
Well,
it's a number.
I'm talking about my own situation. I'm talking about the PFAS situation. So PFAS has been a massive issue across Australia.
Respectfully, I'm just trying to understand the allegation here so we have an understanding in relation to what's happening at a community perspective.
You do need to focus on Orchard.
Correct, on here. So
you're right. There's no. I haven't solicited.
Is the answer
engaged
0,
with the local
1 to 5, 5 to 10?
I haven't engaged with any Orchard Hills resident.
Does that mean the answer is 0? I'm trying to understand the quantum of the problem that you've described in your submission.
Well,
or the scale.
I would submit it's a significant issue if you look Australia-wide, and PFAS is the biggest defence interaction.
Sorry, Mr. Will,
thank you.
We do have to focus, and there's been a PFAS inquiry, but not part of Public Works. But I will. My final question to you is, how would you suggest, and this is a more broader one, that there could be a more transparent process from this point on for Orchard Hills? And can you please outline what you would like public consultation to look like for these proposed works? Because we've had evidence that there was displays at public shopping centres, very busy public shopping centres that I don't know, but that Senator Kovacic knows, and and that there was public advertisements, there was communication with many elected officials. What would you like in terms of a more transparent process?
The best template would be, say, what a state planning system does, which the reality is the proponent would have to put a lot of more information out there in the first place. The reality is the amount of information provided here is not comparable with what you'd have for a DA. So people have got busy lives. They haven't got the time to be, pursuing things that they don't even think's an issue. They only, you've seen it all the time, you MPs, people only rise up and express interest when they're outraged about something. So if there's nothing to be prima facie bothered about, they're not going to respond. So you need some more information initially.
I do know parties that like to cultivate outrage, but that's probably not parties of government. So.
Yeah, but quality information, but is to answer your question. I mean, the other issue, I suppose, there's a broader issue is
like
historically.
A good takeaway that we could, for our next public works, that we could say,
obviously,
run the Bob Wilden ruler over things, and this is how we do it.
Effectively, you've got to look after your public funding aspect of looking after public funds, and I don't know this, but I think you're almost a quasi-planning body. So,
definitely not a quasi-planning.
Well, but someone's got to effectively, like if you're not doing the planning, then who is? They're doing it internally. That means if there's no
state planning minister paid to do state planning,
but the defence projects don't go to the state minister.
Well, they communicate with them and have input from them. So there's the capacity for those two, as Mr. Zappia pursued earlier.
Yeah. Well, just to your question though, I think the reality is, as the projects have got bigger and bigger, there's been more, there are holes in the system for major projects. And I think this is, some of this defence stuff is sort of falling through the holes, where you've got major projects. I don't believe the state government is taking any planning analysis of this project. They are simply looking at what is the impact on our other broader planning strategies. They're not considering the planning. I don't believe that there's anyone apart from your committee that is doing a planning assessment of the planning merits, like bushfire and this and that, of this project. So ultimately that is a weakness in the system, and it would be better for defence. I mean, it's kind of like, your parents let you do anything you want. Well, ultimately you're going to probably end up as a pretty average adult. The reality is having some restrictions and controls on defence, ultimately, I mean, it'll be a hassle for defence in the short term, but ultimately it will be good for defence. Like, so there'll be some clanger decisions made if they are like with all these billions of dollars spent, if they're under no restriction in how they spend it, and they can effectively sort of just give you go under the radar with the info they give you, there'll be some clanger decisions made,
so
and which won't be in the
Defence decided that Orchard Hills was too congested and needed to move everything to next door to you. You'd be.
Well, I would like them to be away from everyone, including me. but
to be fair, you did start by saying somewhere, but not. Well, not the Hunter and not Orchard Hills.
Well, look, I'm a farmer. Like there is plenty of room in Australia, I think, but it's not easy. Australia's grown.
People call workers to be able to go there as well.
Well, yeah, and look, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy to do what I do, like we've all got a challenge and the opportunities, and we want to get as much done as we can. So, anyway, I appreciate your time.
No. Well, thank you for your attendance here today, and you'll be sent a copy of the transcript to make any corrections to the transcription. And I now declare this public hearing closed.
Thank you.